In this video, I want to tell you about the top 10 people that influenced me when I was on the search for finding healthy, wholesome food here in Michigan. So as I was really digging deeper and looking at all of my ingredients here at the pie shop, I really felt it was important to dive deeper into, where the source is, where the food came from, who was growing it. And I realized that so much of my flour, our sugar, our chicken, our eggs, butter, was growing and being raised on factory farms. Bigger, faster, cheaper seems to be the motto here in America with our food. Let's see how we can make it easier for the farmers. Of course, what a great idea. Let's get lean. Let's try to help the farmers not have to work so hard, help the farmers not to have to use all these chemicals. But it seems like so many of the farmers have resorted to chemical farming over the last few decades, maybe the last 5 or 6 decades really. And I think the next generation here coming up, our young people, they're bailing out. They really don't want to get into the business of chemical farming and take over their family farms. They see the handwriting on the wall, and I'm hoping that the farmers here in this day and age here in Michigan will join with me to really read that handwriting. But I do want to tell you about my top 10 influencers. I'm excited to do this video, and I was at the Michigan Agribusiness Association conference last month, and I realized that I neglected to give them a list of positive influencers that can help farmers to transition from a chemical farm to a biological farm. Let's go back to the biology. Let's think about building our soil and taking care of our soil. We are spraying our soil with fertilizers, we're spraying it with herbicides, insecticides, the seeds are coated with a fungicide, and it just seems like all of the natural biology is being killed out of the soil. And the soil is where everything starts. If you have dirt and you don't have soil, we're not going to have healthy, nutritious food. On my quest to really make sure that, our ingredients were really good, really high quality, I started looking at the milk, I started looking at the sugar, after I got called out on that sugar here many years ago. I keep mentioning that in every video. You can tell I'm really pissed about it. We all have internet, so I'm searching, I'm Googling, I'm talking to other like-minded people. But I actually, on my own, I found this guy on YouTube, and his name is Gabe Brown. And he's a farmer in North Dakota, I believe. And he was never a farmer prior to this, but he and his wife inherited the mother and father-in-law's farm, 5,000 acres. And his parents, now Gabe Brown must be maybe in his late 50s or so. He had never farmed before, but when he inherited the farm, he was probably 20 years prior, because he's been doing this for a while, didn't know anything about farming, and he and his wife took over the 5,000 acre farm. And at that point, it was a huge monoculture of, GMO commodity crops. And he felt that he needed to repair and restore the soil to bring it back to life. It had just been beat to death. So his journey and what he talks about at a lot of the farming conferences he's asked to come in as a speaker is like his main theme that he speaks about is to get armor on the soil. He talks a lot about crop covers, talks about getting hooves on the soil, so he's rotating cattle through there, chickens through there, rotating crops. He'll do a polyculture, so if he's going to grow corn or sunflowers or beans, he's got just a lot of different plants growing at the same time in that field. It's really cool to hear Gabe Brown speak. I admire him so much. So he's number 1. Number 2 is Joel Salatin. Gabe Brown and Joel Salatin, number 1 and 2 on my list. One of the things that I admire most about these men and their families is that their young sons want to take over the farm. They're both actively working on the farm right now. They're speaking along with their fathers at these speaking engagements. And I'm really excited, you know, that it's a generational thing and that the young people are really pumped and excited to take over the family farm. I think that's so important. Today, we have a lot of farmers in their mid-60s, their late 60s, and no one wants to take over the farm. And it's sad that the kids have left and gone to college. The kids are not interested in this chemical farming, like I said. We're seeing all of these lawsuits happening. I think we're seeing the handwriting on the wall. It is kind of looking like what happened in 2008. Too big to fail happened here in the automotive industry. Is that what might be happening here in the big ag industry? Are the big guys here at the top of the pyramid, are they getting out? Are they cashing in? Or they see the handwriting on the wall? I'm wondering how many of those bigwigs are splitting, they're resigning and they're getting an early buyout. I'm just so worried about the farmers. I worry that a lot of farmers are going to be left holding the bag. So my third guy that I want to talk about that I found on the internet is Justin Rhodes. Now, he's not going to be helping any of y'all big farmers who have a few hundred acres, or maybe you have a few thousand acres that you're farming and you're hoping to transition to an all-natural, sustainable farm where you're building your soil. But Justin Rhodes is just a lot of fun to watch, you guys. He is a homesteader. He and his wife and their 4 kids live on their very small farm, and they are totally 100% sustaining themselves on everything that they grow, they eat. I don't think they're going to the grocery store for too many things. They did a really cool American road trip. I think they called it the All-American Farm Tour, and that was a lot of fun. They got in a converted school bus, them and their kids, and they traveled around the country visiting a lot of these farms. It was so interesting. 4, Curtis Stone. So Curtis Stone is called the Urban Farmer, and he's up in British Columbia, and he's taken over everybody's front yards and he's growing gardens. He inspired me to put up a hoop house here in Michigan, and all through the winter I have a solar passive hoop house, and right now we have spinach and kale growing in there. Right now I've got some winter lettuces that are very hardy. It's pretty cool. He's very inspirational. He gives you a lot of advice on farm markets and how to make money, and he's doing really well, guys. Check out Curtis Stone, the Urban Farmer. Lots of help there for you. Number 5, of course, is Eliot Coleman. Everybody knows Eliot Coleman. Do you guys remember back in the 80s, he had a show on PBS, I believe it was, and he also had his greenhouses, and he was composting, and he was doing everything all natural and organic, and he was really focused on building good, healthy soil. So he was very inspirational to my husband and I as we started our own, you know, hoop house and gardening at home. I've read everything about Eliot Coleman. I just think he's a hero. I think he was like the founder and our forefather of, you know, all these homesteaders. Now they all know who Eliot Coleman is. But he's got some really great advice in his books. I highly recommend it. Number 6 is Klaas Marten. Klaas is a wheat farmer, and he is out east, up there where Eliot Coleman is too, you know, in a very cold area here in our country. But he's growing wheat, but he's not growing just any kind of wheat. He's growing a very ancient, old wheat called einkorn wheat, and a lot of people who have gluten intolerance, wheat allergies, are able to eat einkorn wheat. So it's really interesting. I do a lot of baking at home with einkorn wheat. My husband bought me a wheat grinder, so tried my hand at some wonderful sourdough einkorn wheat. It's a lot of fun. Klaas is growing hundreds and hundreds of acres. You know, it's just amazing. What I found Klaas when I watched the documentary on Netflix called Sustainable. I highly recommend that you watch Sustainable if you are in the farming industry, if you have a small farm market, you're selling to the farmers markets, a vegetable farmer, or if you're a big commodity farmer. Watch Sustainable on Netflix. It was really helpful. Number 7 is Dr. Elaine Ingham. And she is so amazing. She's really focused on soil biology. I took her course on soil biology. I learned how to compost properly. I learned all about the little nematodes and microarthropods and mycorrhizal fungi and everything that's in the soil that cycles nutrient. And I realized that biological farming was where it was at. Chemical farming is not. You know, the crops that are growing out in the field that need nitrogen and they need spray and fertilizer put on them, it's like a very sick patient laying in a hospital bed with an IV drip. And that's how I'm thinking of this chemical farming. It's just an IV drip for plants just to get them through until harvest. The soil is dead and there's no life in the soil. There's very little bacteria, probably very few strains of bacteria. I walk around in a lot of farmland out here in Armada. I mean, it just looks so bad. It's just packed, it's clay pan. You know, if you have a farm and there's sand, silt, clay, rocks, or pebbles, there is nutrients, minerals in the soil. You've got to get the biology back in there though. So Dr. Elaine Ingham has a really great course. I highly recommend her course. Check her out, the Soil Foodweb. I think she could help our country so much if we all learned how to make compost tea. You want to get on your tractor and you want to put out those big arms and spray stuff on your field. I know with a feeling. I know how hard it is to break away from something that you've been doing for decades. But spray compost tea. Check that out. I've made my own compost tea. I've got my microscope. It's just mind-blowing. I really enjoy it. If I wasn't a pie baker, I might be a soil biologist. I think it could be so interesting. I know it's so interesting. So number 8, I just love Greg Judy. Check out Greg Judy on YouTube. He puts out so many YouTube videos and he's out there with his little camera rotating his cattle from paddock to paddock every day. He is just so in love with his cattle, and his cattle are all 100% grass-fed. He's down in Missouri. It's cold down there right now. You know, the way he talks about his cattle, and they are fat, roly-poly cattle. Guys, check them out. You can't see a bone on his cows. Really good stuff. So he talks about farmers don't invest in metal. He does not invest in tractors, in big barns. He invests in cattle, and he puts up just one little strand of electric fence. High technology nowadays that we have at our fingertips, right? Your great-grandfather would have given his IT for this technology called an electric fence. And you're just stepping in these little stakes and you're moving your cows from small spot to small spot every 24 hours. And you're out there walking on your land and you're out there making sure that the water's flowing, that they have fresh water. Oh, wouldn't that be nice just to be outside walking around in your fields, rotating your cattle, going into a silvo pasture and just spending time in nature all day instead of like that Dilbert cubicle, you know, that Joel Salatin's always talking about how many interns he gets. He has like a spot for maybe 6 interns every year, and he has like 300 people apply every year. And it's people who are in their late 20s, early 30s, who have been in high-tech jobs. You know, they're sitting in an office somewhere and they're just fed up with it and they don't want to spend the rest of their life in an office job somewhere. So these guys really, and Greg Judy has a lot of interns as well that he is teaching, and he is sharing his knowledge. Just what a great guy. I just love watching his YouTube videos. I could just, you know, fall asleep to watching all of these guys, especially Gabe Brown. Wait till you listen to his voice. It's one to fall asleep by, but you can't because he's so interesting. But it's so soothing. But I just love watching Greg Judy. I love watching the cows out on the pasture. Number 9 is Dr. Stephanie Seneff. She's a PhD. She is a chief research scientist at MIT. MIT doesn't take any grants from big ag, so I believe the research is being done in an unbiased way. I had mentioned Dr. Stephanie Senna at the conference, the farm conference that I was at. I was chatting with another farmer, and this guy was so ornery. He was just so mad at the world. And I said, you know, check her out. She's got done a lot of really good research. I have featured her overlay charts where you take the chart from the USDA FDA, that they have measured the tons and tons of chemicals and GMOs that have been bought, and you can see the chart going up and up and up over the years from, like, say 1990 to 2010, for instance, and it just goes up, just a huge rise on the chart. And then you take another chart that shows MS, autism, all kinds of cancer, and the chart follows those lines so similar. I mean, it's mind-boggling. It is startling. It's startling. So I use them in a presentation. She's got a lot of those overlay charts. So I was mentioning to this farmer, because he has lymphoma, and he's handled a lot of the chemicals that, you know what I'm talking about, and he is in the middle of a lawsuit, but he still said, but it's a good chemical, it really worked well. And I'm just like, what? You mishandled it. They didn't warn you that you needed to wear a respirator or gloves. I mean, I used to use Roundup too on my driveway. Guys, I would spray my driveway is like 2 football field lengths. It's a long driveway, and it's a gravel driveway, and I'd be out there spraying the Roundup with my flip-flops on. I wasn't taking any precautions. So, the farmers have handled, tons and tons and tons of it. So I really felt sorry for this guy, and he was just pissed off at the world. He said, Dr. Stephanie Senna, yeah, I've heard of her. She's no ag specialist. She's not, she doesn't know anything about agriculture. She's not a scientist. I go, I don't know. She's a PhD, and she's got a lot of letters behind her name. Her research is really compelling, and I don't care if she was my garbage man. Her research is really compelling, guys. So Dr. Stephanie Senna, I follow her also on Facebook. She's exposing a lot of dirt, and so she's kind of being blocked a lot too. So I like to be on there, giving her a thumbs up, supporting, reading her articles, and sharing them as well. But I see that a lot of that stuff gets blocked. Number 10 is Seven Sons Farm. So I believe they're in Indiana. They're one state below us here in Michigan. What a great story, you guys. They do a lot of YouTube videos too. So helpful. Every one of these people that I mentioned, they're out there. They are sharing what they know. It's great stuff. Seven Sons Farm. They had 7 sons, and the mom and dad had a farm where they were raising factory farmed pigs. And it was really stinky. It was really crowded. There was a lot of cement that they had to lay and put up these barns, and the infrastructure is really expensive when you want to do a concentration animal feed operation, a CAFO. I almost want to say concentration camp, because the barracks look like a concentration camp in World War II. They're just a long metal building with no windows, and they're standing on cement all day. If you're talking about pigs or chickens, they might even be in a tight cage where they can't even turn around. And that's the industry that these guys were in. They hated it. One of the 7 sons, and they all do videos, they were saying that their parents didn't even make enough money doing this factory pig farm. And they had to go off farm, and both of them had to get off farm jobs to try to make ends meet. It was just a never ending money pit. And they couldn't make it. I mean, can you imagine not being able to make enough money, and you've got 7 kids to feed? So both of them had to go off farm. So now they've tore them all down, and they're like, now I got big pads of cement out here on my farm. So what are they supposed to do? Chisel all that cement up, I guess. But man, these guys are doing really, really well. And they give us a lot of information on proper rotation of chickens, turkeys. They've got all kinds of animals. But they're supplying a couple thousand families with their direct farm to consumer marketing that they do. And a lot of these guys have really great social media, campaigns going. They've got a lot of young people working there on the farm with them who can do social media pretty well. All of these guys have a lot of great advice. If you are a farmer and you're listening to me right now and you're contemplating getting out of all of that handling of these carcinogens and these fertilizers that are hurting our waterways, especially Lake Erie here in Michigan, we're just causing so much soil erosion and so many dead zones here throughout our country. We're losing our topsoil. In 2020, we are all awakening. So many of us are awakening to what's going on here with our farmland. We realize that our farmers are our protectors. They're caregivers of the earth. and the water and the clean air. So it's up to our farmers to really farm in a rejuvenating way, a sustainable way, a way that's, you know, restoring the earth. When we have good, luscious, healthy soil, it's retaining water. When we have a heavy waterfall event, the fields aren't washing out into the roads like I see here down Armada Center Road. I could hardly get down it here a few weeks ago. It was just like mud everywhere. The fields were just out into the roads and running down the ditches, and there was no cover crops planted on any of the fields that I looked at, guys. I don't know why anybody would want to lose their topsoil. These guys have really inspired me, and I really think that you'll like watching a few of these guys. I don't even know which one to pick first. I've got, 1 through 10 listed here. Where do you even get started? There's a lot of information here. Pick one, get started, start watching. Let me know what you think. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and please share it with someone who is a farmer, who perhaps wants to get out of farming and doesn't feel that their farm is going to last another decade or two, and who's going to buy that farm? That it's just a big chemical farm. So guys, if you're looking to get out, there's a lot of good information out there. There's inspiring people that are doing it right now. A lot of good information. So I wish you all the best in your health and your wealth and your wisdom, guys. I hope that I provided a little bit of wisdom here today. So I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.